Welcome to the Plague Hive. Today I'm joined by Caleb, who recently won the Battle Hardened Philadelphia with his fairly defensive Contract Uzuri list. Caleb, welcome and thanks for joining me on the channel. Why don't you tell us how you got into the game and why you decided to go with Uzuri for this event before we start to go over your list, and then at the end of the video do our customary introduction test demo game that we always do on this channel.
All right. Hi, thanks for having me here. I got into the game during Outsiders, so that's one of the reasons I decided to pick up this deck, and I've played it for basically the entire time I've been playing this game.
Okay.
I brought it to this event because I thought it had pretty good matchups into the meta, except for Dromai, caveat, but we can try our best to dodge them, and I think it was just a really good call for specifically this event, and there's some cards I brought because of what I thought we would see, and we'll be getting into that, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, sure. Just before we get into the list, can you give us a quick rundown of what your matchup spread looked like in the Swiss? Because, we've seen the top 8, obviously, but
Right.
What was the heroes you faced during the Swiss to actually get to top 8?
So my round 1 was Rhinar. My round 2 was the Uzuri Mirror. They were on a more red line aggressive Uzuri. Round 3, which was on stream, was against Dorinthia.
Oh yeah.
Round 4 was my only loss, which was into KO. My round 5 was Bravo, very interesting Aura Bravo list, which was very interesting.
So like a setup, kind of take an off turn to set up an aura and then just hit like a big chunky damage hit, that kind of play style.
Yeah, he was playing the 3 copies from, I think the card was from the TCC UPF set, where it's like discount 1, give it +5. He was playing that, swing Crippling Crush for 16 sort of thing.
All right.
Pretty good.
That sounds pretty threatening, to be honest. Yeah.
It was, but unfortunately, he was not able to dominate on those turns, so it ended up working out.
Okay, right.
And then round 6, I played into Dromai, and round 7 and 8, I played Rhinar.
Okay, right. So you had a whole bunch of Rhinars, actually. That's kind of interesting. I would normally assume that to be a little bit of I wouldn't necessarily say terrible matchup for Uzuri, but I feel like out of the 3 brutes, Rhinar is probably the one that can give us the most headache, especially if you play like a rather defensive list like yours, just because the Intimidates mess with your ability to block exactly the way you want to. So definitely very interesting to hear that you faced 3 of them and actually came out the winner every single time. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I will say, for the Rhinar matchup, this list benefits a lot from the red line list existing.
Okay, right.
Pretty much, I also played a Rhinar in the top 8, and they were all boarded in, all their defense reactions, all of their, I'm going to try and outvalue you sort of game plan. And that's pretty good into the red line list, and very, very bad into this list.
Right. That's one thing I love about Uzuri, actually, is that there's so many different versions of her still making the rounds, and none of them are actually bad. I think every one of them has merits, so people never know what exactly to expect. Sometimes you play Redline, and you face people expecting a fatigue list, and then they just run full pile into you. You run a clean 60, and you can just kill them because their deck is so inefficient. And in your case, it's sort of like the opposite, right? People expect this fast, aggressive list, and then you turn up with the slightly more defensive version of it, and then you can benefit from that. So it's sort of there's so many versions of her that people don't really know how to accurately sideboard. They kind of have to guess or scout the matchup, I suppose, if they go around the tables and they see you're on this sort of more defensive plan. I would assume one thing that sort of gives it away, and maybe that's a good segue into going over the actual deck, is your choice of headpiece into certain matchups, right? So when you sit down and then you flip the Mask of Perdition, I think that's pretty much a fairly fairly dead giveaway what exactly your game plan in that matchup is. But I suppose into brutes particularly, you're probably going to run Balance of Justice just to counteract the Blood Rush. So they don't actually know what exactly it is you're trying to do, because that's the headpiece they would expect a red line list to run to. So that doesn't really help them in any way. Yeah.
Yeah. Balance of Justice is a very good card.
100%, yeah. All right, so while we're at it, let's just go over the rest of the equipment pieces here. So we already had the head pieces, so we have Balance of Justice and Mask of Perdition. I'm assuming you just run Balance of Justice into anything where the effect is actually relevant. So like any brute deck, I guess Dash.io, Prism, who else regularly draws 2 cards? Maybe Dromai too? Like, what's your strategy there?
Personally prefer Mask into both. I'm more playing Balance of Justice against decks where the fatigue is kind of rough, so I actually prefer Mask into Dash.io, especially because you can usually get more activations off of it.
Okay.
And also Balance of Justice is kind of weird in that matchup because you don't really know if they're ever going to activate it.
Okay, right, yeah.
Like ever trigger it.
Fair enough.
But then you usually play Mask into basically anything that's not Brute or Kano. I think there is maybe reason to play it into Dromai. Yeah, I think that's probably better just because you never get a Mask Dromai. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're really just playing it into Brutes, Kano. And specifically, you don't want to play it into Kasai. Like, very specifically, do not play it into Kasai.
Yeah, I think that makes sense just because I think their main game plan into Uzuri shouldn't be to actually run cash in. I think they have better things to do with their gold tokens. Like if they run cash in and they decide to burn their gold on that, I think we're actually happy they're not using it on Raise an Army, just because that's much more of a headache for us to actually deal with. At least in this particular iteration of the list. I would assume there's like more aggressive lists that maybe run stuff like Ravencall that helps you deal with those allies with the mercenaries a little bit easier. But I think on your list specifically, running Mask of Perdition into Kasai makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the rest of the equipment, it's actually kind of a difficult decision what to play. It basically completely hinges around me wanting to play AB2.
Okay.
Specifically for like trying to make the Kano as not awful as possible. So it's like you have balance for that, so you can't really play the Null Rune Hood, and you really want the black text in that as well, which means that you have to give up the Flick Knife spot for those matchups. And you also need to play both knives and AB1 into draw by, in my opinion. So you have to play the gloves. And if you have to play the gloves, it means that Flick Knives gets worse. Like, and if Flick Knives is worse, you have to play less daggers. And then because of you playing less daggers, you can't play Concealed Blade. And it's this whole thing where it's like this whole, like, down the list of things you want. And it means that you have to play this very specific way. But I do wish that I brought Orbitoclast. I'm not sure what I would have brought cut for it. Like, it's a real thinker, but I think Orbitoclast should have been played in this list.
For what matchups specifically?
Specifically for Kasai and Kano.
Okay. Right, yeah, for Kano that makes sense, yeah. 100%.
In my match against Kano, I was like swinging Nerve Scalpel like a decent amount, and it's like if this were a Orbitoclast, it'd be a lot better.
That's true, yeah. It makes their blocking decisions a lot harder for sure. But specifically against Kasai, would you think that maybe Scale Peeler is also an option just because it negates their boots so much? Or do you think that Orbitoclast would still be the preferred dagger here? Or is it just the case of, okay, I'm kind of hitting like both Kano and Kasai with this, and Scale Peeler does nothing against Kano, so if I'm bringing only one extra dagger, it would be Orbitoclast and not Scale Peeler.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like we are, like the list is playing more for a fatigue strategy. So every card that you're not able to present in matches where you're trying to present every card, like is pretty relevant.
Okay.
And Scale Peeler, like I don't think it does enough into Kasai versus Orbitoclast.
Okay.
Like obviously it is good to like try and negate their boots value, but generally like you're still getting 2 cards off of like your most important hits. So I think Skill Peeler, while good in specifically the Kasai matchup, Orbital Class is just as good, and you don't really need the Skill Peeler. Because obviously if you like swing and leave no witnesses or plunder the poor, and you hit with any dagger, like it's probably about equal.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, but that explains like your inventory in terms of equipment is like, I would say, fairly light compared to some other Uzuri lists. Like particularly in recent times, I've seen a lot of lists run like 4 daggers because they're playing with Concealed Blade, and then you can do some nice stuff with that and flick more aggressively, right? It's a different play style, definitely. But if you're saying that your goal is to fatigue in quite a few matchups, then obviously it makes sense to keep your inventory in terms of equipment as light as possible, just so you can run more impactful cards in the sideboard that you can actually bring in for those matchups, right? Okay, so for the rest of the equipment here, we have Spring Tunic, standard, Flick Knives, also standard. I think there's not really any reason to bring Shriek Razors. It's kind of sad because I like the card from like a theoretical point of view. Like it's an interesting card. I just don't think it does enough for the deck, even if you're on like a contract list that generates a bunch of silver. You always have more impactful things to spend your silver on. Like Shriek Razors would be like the 3rd or 4th thing that you spend your silver on, basically. And just Flick Knives has that extra value of basically saying, right, your opponent starts on 2 less life, which is incredibly relevant in a lot of cases. So I don't see dropping that personally ever.
Not only that, it's the problem that Shriek Razors costs 2 to activate.
Yeah.
There is always something better to do with 2 resources.
If it was 1, I think I could see it, honestly.
Yeah.
Like you could do like
1,
Shakedown of a blue, have 1 floating, and then Shriek Razors to activate it. That would actually be interesting. But yeah, at 2, basically that means you need to have Tunic up to make that play. And then, you know, there's also already a lot of stuff that the deck wants to spend the Tunic resource on. So adding more isn't necessarily relevant or good in that spot. Yeah. Then Black Text, obviously, very good boot piece, basically. Recurable Snapdragons that also blocks 1 if your list supports it. You run a bunch of contracts, so you generate a fair amount of silver. So that makes perfect sense. We already talked about the Arcane Barrier, and then you only have Spider's Bite and Nerve Scalpel, and you already said that's basically not because you don't like running extra daggers, you just don't have the space for them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I remember like watching your game against Kasai and then seeing that you ran like Nerve Scalpel and Spider's Bite, or I think it actually was the Dorinthia game. And I was wondering like, all right, why is he running these daggers? Like Spider's Bite makes no sense. And then obviously the immediate reason would be, okay, you just don't have any other daggers in the sideboard that you could bring in for the matchup, because like that's how it goes sometimes. You always have to make sacrifices. Like sideboard space for Uzuri lists is just absurdly tight, considering she has like 2 full sets of support. It's actually tighter than any other deck that I've played so far.
Yeah, I'm always trying to fit like 1 more card in, and it's like, oh,
what do you cut for it?
What do I take out?
It's always rough. Okay, so that takes care of the equipment. So let's go over the main board. And again, there's a couple of, I would say, standard choices here. So you have Command and Conquer, Enlightened Strike, Leave No Witnesses, Shakedown, Codex of Frailty, Surgical Extraction, and Blue Isolates only. I think that's like standard stuff. You're going to see those in almost every Uzuri list. And then we have a couple of other cards that are a little less commonly run. So obviously you run a contract list. So you have like Annihilate the Armed and Plunder the Poor, because they're just overall, I would say, the 2 best contracts that you can run. You run Already Dead. Is that like a specific tech card that you chose to run, or are you just like, okay, this is a 2-cost 6 that says contract on it, and there's actually a bunch of decks in the meta right now where the contract does generate you some silver, so it's just a good inclusion?
Yeah, this card is just really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
2 for 6, it's good, but also the banish off the chain link,
Mm-hmm.
or off the chain, not just the chain link, tends to be really good. It's good, obviously, into all the warriors, anything that wants to block with armor, or like it also existing lands to C1. Like if you throw an isolate, they like really don't want to block with armor, which is really
Mm-hmm.
nice. It's also good into Levia if you get it like early,
Mm-hmm.
because you can just banish a 6 off the chain or a
Mm-hmm.
piece of blood off the chain, which is a little fringe, but it's good.
Oh yeah,
Um,
actually, that's a nice interaction. I didn't think about that. Yeah, so she doesn't get the graveyard fill. You just banish that, and then she has one less 6 in the graveyard. That's actually a neat interaction. Yeah.
so like a lot of times it's like if it's like turn 0 already dead against Levia is very strong,
Mm-hmm.
because they want to block to fill the graveyard, and then you just say -1.
Okay. Nice. That's pretty
Um,
good. Yeah.
yeah, I mean the card's just good, and I'm playing the Cut to the Chase, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing 2 in this list.
Mm-hmm.
That card's really good. Uh, I would play 3, but again, space, and it felt
Space.
like a
Yeah.
wasteful.
Okay,
Like,
because that's like one of the best reactions I think that Assassin has access to, and you run like a lot of contracts to actually support it. But are you saying that basically you don't want to hold even 2 cards if you don't have to, basically? So you just choose to run less reactions and more attacks. Like, for example, like the Nyx the Nimble, for example, here could be another Cut to the Chase, right?
yeah,
So that was like your decision was I'd rather have one extra attack so I can fatigue even more rather than having the extra reactions to sort of push over the top.
yeah, I've found the reaction threat, like, parity to be really hard to, like, come to a solid, like, I am certain about this
Mm-hmm.
conclusion. I was, like, testing 3 copies of Spreading Plague, for example, and it just
Mm-hmm.
felt, like, very bad, because
Mm-hmm.
it felt like, oh, I do not have the threat density to support all these reactions.
Right. Okay.
Especially because I'm playing like a lot of defense reactions.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to make sure that you have enough threats to actually support the attack reactions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really between like one more 1 for 5 contract, in this
Mm-hmm.
case being Next Nimble, or a third Cut to the Chase.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured this deck wants exactly one more 1 for 5 contract.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, and I think I already heard you mention somewhere that Nyx the Nimble wasn't chosen specifically because you wanted Nyx, but because you couldn't find a copy of Rob the Rich, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Right.
Although I will say they are the same card. Like
Yeah.
these, like for the purpose of this deck,
Mm-hmm.
like Rob the Rich is technically just a little bit better,
Mm-hmm.
but they're pretty much the same card.
So you care about the banish, and the fact that it presents 5 a lot more than the fact that you might get silver off of it in some certain situations. It's more about the banishing.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
lot more about the band.
Right. Right. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then speaking of banishing, we have one more contract here, which is Eradicate, obviously,
Mhm.
which makes perfect sense because if the opponent is like, I would say maybe unexperienced enough, I think if you don't know the matchup well enough, you're kind of tempted to let Eradicate hit. You're just like, I'm not blocking this. It doesn't, disrupt me or anything. And I think generally, if an Eradicate hits for the full amount, if you're playing a dedicated fatigue list already, that just means you just won the game against almost any deck, unless they can kill you in like 2 or 3 turns, basically.
Yeah, Eradicate is actually one of the best swap targets in the deck,
Mm-hmm.
just because a lot of the times your opponents, especially if they're on an aggressive list
Mm-hmm.
like KO, they can't. They're just like, okay, I can't block this isolate. I've already used my Scowling Flesh Bag.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not gonna block. And then Eradicate is like the best thing you can swap into.
Right.
But also, like, people do not know the correct amount of respect to give this card,
Mm-hmm.
because they either like over respect it or under respect it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no like, oh, I'm going to block the exact. There's very little like blocking the exact correct amount against this card, unless
Yeah.
I have it, unless you have exactly sync below, basically. Which in
I,
which case, fair.
I think it's like mostly, in my experience, people either block 3 or 6 on it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had anybody just let an Eradicate hit unless they knew they had like a completely nuts hand and they could deal me like upwards of 20 damage on their next turn. Personally, I don't know what's the correct way. Like, obviously, if you're just sending Eradicate, I think just blocking 3 is fine. Like, getting 1 banish off of it is okay. You're not dedicating a second card to that. But if you're keeping another card and you're representing like a Shred or a Cut to the Chase, I think blocking 6 on it is also pretty reasonable, right? It kind of depends on what exactly your game plan is and how you're deciding to approach the matchup, right? Like if you think you have a fair chance to just kill the Uzuri before fatigue starts to be relevant, you can probably just go, okay, block 1 card, and then if you have a Shred, all right, you have it, like the sort of make them have it approach. But if you're worried about fatigue, I think blocking 6 is probably the correct call. But either way, you're getting cards out of their deck, right? Whether they block or don't block, that's kind of the beauty about contracts, right? You always get cards out of their deck either way. And if that's all you care about, and the silver is like the lower, relevant part of the contracts, you don't really care if they block or not. Like it's the same result to you, essentially. Okay, so yeah, that takes care of the contracts over here. And then we have basically the only aggressive tool in here outside of like Enlightened Strike is looking for a scrap. And then the blue base to kind of support that, obviously. So I know that lists like Archon Altus ones run like only 6 blue stealth cards, but he's also on a very aggressive flick heavy plan with Concealed Blade and stuff. So you can use spare daggers to support the looking for a scrap. That's obviously not really an option for your list. Like, I suppose you do it, if it's absolutely necessary and you have no other way to play out a looking for a scrap. But I would assume that's what the higher number of blue stealth cards is for, right? Like the 9 copies that you have down here.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. I think 9 stealth is the right amount. Like, honestly, I don't swap very much with this deck at all. Because usually it's just better to throw a dagger and then throw an attack, or throw 2 daggers and then throw an attack. But looking for a scrap is a really good card second cycle. Because usually it's by then where it's like, oh, I'm actually like lower than I want to. My opponent's like, I'm lower than I want to be. And I have to actually block this card, which is basically going to be free 2 damage and a card out of their hand in the end game, which is very strong. And it's also pitching it. Obviously, it's a red, doesn't feel great, but early game, you basically always sink it. And then it's just very good in your second cycle or third cycle. And that's when if you have these 9 blue stealth cards, it's basically always going to be active because you will have blocked with these cards at that point.
Yeah. Like by second cycle, I think you have no problem getting 3 blue stealth cards into your graveyard.
Exactly.
That should be pretty doable, yeah. What was the reasoning to choose Sedate as the third one? I know like Isolate is very obvious, and then usually Backstab is just included because it has that synergy with Command and Conquer, where you just never give them an opportunity to actually play a defense reaction. Why Sedate over something like maybe Infect, for example?
I mean, this card did not hit, right? Infect blue is not going to hit. None of these cards ever hit.
Right.
So it's like technically, I think this one has the highest upside into the most matchups.
Okay.
I was actually thinking about playing Malign.
All right.
Because I was like, what if there's prisms? And I play Isolate and they don't block, and then I swap into Malign and kill all of their auras. And it's like, is that upside, like, which is also not going to happen?
Yeah.
Like, worth playing for? And it's like, probably not, but I think which blue stealth you play here doesn't really matter.
Okay.
As long as it's not Prowl.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah, Prowl probably takes the cake for being by far the worst of the bunch. Because it's like exclusively for Arachne Solitary Confinement. That card does nothing for Uzuri, yeah, that's true.
But if you did play blue Prowl, it would not affect the list.
Fair. So you could do, and it would still serve 99% of the same purpose. That's true.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fair. All right, and then to sort of round out the blue base, we got blue shreds over here. which got, I think, a little bit of a bad rap recently, just because a lot of people have started experimenting with Conceal Blade in that slot, essentially. But yeah, in your list, because you don't have the space to run more daggers, it makes sense to keep the blue shred if you just want a couple more blue cards and a couple more reactions. It still gets around the very common play pattern of blocking 3 and then a defense reaction to go up to 7, and then blue shred actually lowers it to 5, so your like shakedown or whatever can still hit. So it does have some applicable stuff, and then blue shred also takes care of any temper equipment in the game, which is very relevant because basically LSS has stopped printing Battle Worn, so any 2-block equipment you get in recent sets is almost always going to have temper, and then having extra copies of shred to punish those blocks can be pretty impactful. So that also makes sense to me.
Yep. 2 is the correct number. Just 3 is way too many because you're pitching this card all the time.
Yep.
And the whole like, oh, what is my threat density curve really matters at the end of the game when you're drawing 2 blue shred and you go, I have made a horrible mistake.
Fair. Yeah.
So 2 again, once again, the correct number. And also like you want to play a certain amount of reactions now because of the threat of Kasai.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Like in general, I think fine-tuning the amount of reactions in your list is something that takes a little bit of practice in general with Uzuri. And it also depends on what exactly your list is trying to do, right? Like the more reactions you run generally, the better your defensive games get. Like games against defensive Droma lists or Guardian, for example. Reactions really help with that, but then your aggro matches get worse because you start not drawing any threats and not, forcing them to block. So it's kind of like a tricky balance to achieve, and I think it just takes a number of testing games to figure out what exactly the perfect amount is. I will say Shred is probably the one that takes the most work to get right, just because it's so restrictive. If your opponent just goes no blocks and you held a shred to punish them, that can feel incredibly bad because then you have to Arsenal the shred. And I think we all know by this point that shred in Arsenal is a bit of a trap frequently. It can get really stuck there if you're unlucky. And then if you're not on something like Crown of Providence to cycle that out, it can be really rough. And I think for the most part, specifically in contract lists, Crown of Providence just isn't run anymore because you have Balance of Justice now. I think that just takes that spot. There's an argument to be made for running both, but I don't think you have the space for 3 different headpieces, at least not in contract lists.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then we have your standard defensive options here in the main board, which is Sink Below and Fate Foreseen. I think that makes sense. Like these are going to be in basically every list because they're just too good not to run, in my opinion. The exact numbers may vary, but I think this is a card that you're going to see in the majority of lists. I'm assuming this is not like a set in stone main board, right? There's going to be matchups where you side out some of the defense reactions, or is that something where you go, okay, this stays in maybe apart from Kano?
Yeah. Kano aside, I think you play this in every matchup.
Okay.
Because against aggro decks, you obviously want it because it's fantastic. And into slower, mid-rangey, or like decks that can potentially like also fatigue you, you're playing every card.
Sure.
So it's just always going to go in. It's always good if they're attacking.
Yeah, fair. That makes sense, yeah. Okay, and I think that pretty much takes care of the main board. Yeah, we've gone over everything, so that's good. All right, and then we go over the inventory down here. And there's a couple of things here that are interesting for me to see. Like the 3 copies of Death Touch, I think, are the one that stand out the most to me. Just because I think Death Touch is also a card that has kind of fallen out of favor a little bit recently. Just because, I mean, Lexi left. That's the main reason, to be honest. Like, Lexi being the top deck in the format is what made Death Touch as good as it was, just because Frailty against Lexi was so strong. And as absurd as it sounds to say that a 1-cost 8 damage card is sort of not what you want, I feel like sometimes that's actually the case with Uzuri. So what's your reasoning behind running 3 copies of that? And did you find it to be impactful enough to warrant the full 3 copies? Because you're also only on like 3 stealth cards, right? So 9 stealth in total. And so you have to sort of, I think, often just arsenal the card to actually make it playable.
Yeah, I will say this is probably one of the cards that doesn't get played the most.
Okay.
Like specifically, I'm not playing it into the brute matchups
Okay.
just because it blocks 2. Like most of the deck, besides looking for a scrap, death touch, and codex of frailty, everything blocks 3 or 4.
Yep.
So, but this card is 1. It's a 6. Deck wants poppers.
Sure.
And this fits the bill. And this deck is playing slower, which means you often will have the time to set up an arsenal, and then like pitch a blue dagger into death touch is just such an overrate turn.
Yeah, that's true.
That it's pretty much always worth playing if you can set it up. Setting up it can be difficult, and like the card can get stuck in your hand, but at worst it's usually -1 block. Like it could be something else, but the ability to have like such an overrate turn with just 2 cards is very strong. And I just don't know like what else I would want to play for it, because it's like maybe I could play more. Like let's say I just like, I want to play 3 more 1-for-5 contracts. Like they're block 3s, they attack for 1 less, and they have synergy with the deck, right? But I just don't think that they do as much as Death Touch because they don't pop. And that's it.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, all right. So just like the Dromai matchup is relevant enough that you say, okay, having more poppers is like a thing that I want in the list, right?
Yeah.
Speaking about the Dromai matchup, actually, is your plan for Dromai to fatigue them or kill them? Like, how do you approach that matchup?
You have to try and fatigue them.
Okay.
Which kind of sucks because that's really hard.
Yeah. Okay.
I did play against one Dromai, and I did fatigue them. They scooped at 28-1.
Okay.
So that felt good.
Right.
But yeah, I mean it's a tough matchup, but the extra 3 6s matter a lot.
I think if you're going for the fatigue strategy, absolutely. Like the higher your popper density is, the better that strategy gets, I think. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I personally love Death Touch, so I consistently try to find reasons to put it back into lists, just because I love everything about the card, right? Like the ability, the cost, the artwork particularly, I think is fantastic. So I just think that with Lexi gone and now basically Bloodrot being sort of like the default that you go for in almost every situation with Death Touch, it just lost a little bit of power. But yeah, I think there's still lots of reasons to still play it. So
I'm kind of interested that you say like Bloodrot is the default, because I've found myself be choosing Inertia way more often than any other mode.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Like I feel, and this is obviously anecdotal, right? Because it's just me playing the deck and then, making certain observations. But for me, almost any time I picked something that wasn't Bloodrot, on the next turn I was like, dang it, I should have gone for Bloodrot, right? I think that Inertia is an extremely powerful token to give the opponent. But I also think that it is way, way, way better to do that reactively with Inertia Trap than proactively with Death Touch or Sedate or something like that. Because it gives the opponent less time and less information, less ways to play around it. Usually when you give them an Inertia with a Death Touch, unless their hand really doesn't allow for it, they're going to find a way to play out their whole hand and convert it into damage or resources or something, right? So a brute deck will just go, okay, I'll try to sneak in an extra claw swing, even though an arsenal would be more value down the line, something like that. Or a Kasai is going to be, okay, I'm going to try to hit with something, and then maybe I can pitch the extra resources into Grains of Blood Spills, stuff like that, right? most decks at the moment have ways to convert extra cards in a meaningful way. It's still usually good to keep them off an arsenal. So I'm not denying that in any way. Like usually an arsenal is worth more for them than like 1 or 2 or 3 value that they get from converting the card in another way. But I just feel like having the proactive inertia feels a bit less relevant. To be fair, that could be a playstyle thing. I think if your strategy is going for fatigue, you try to drag out the game, right? You try to stop your opponent from dealing as much damage as they want to you, because you know that eventually you're going to run them out of cards. And then the proactive inertia actually makes sense, because you just go, okay, I know you're not going to have a 5-card hand, or not going to have the ability to set up a 5-card hand in your next turn. And then know that I don't have to block as much, right? Just because you only have 4 cards available for you. And I don't really care that the card goes back in your deck. I don't really care that, the damage from Blood Rot could have been more relevant, because killing you is not my main goal here. So I think that might be a playstyle thing, because I'm not typically a big fatigue player, right? I play for fatigue when it sort of presents itself, Sometimes with Uzuri, you just end up in a game state where you go, oh, I can fatigue you now, I don't care. I don't need to kill you anymore. But it's not usually my main strategy when I play the hero. So I think that might be why we have like this different opinion on Death Touch and what mode to choose when you hit.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think it is a play style, like big play style difference, which I think is shown a lot through like how I choose to play the game. Like I'm throwing tons of daggers just all the time. Mm-hmm. Also, I guess side note about Death Touch, there are some matchups where it's just always frailty. Mm-hmm. Like Warrior, always frailty.
Fair. Yeah.
Ninja, always frailty.
That's that makes sense. Yeah. All right, and then we have a couple more reactions here, both like offensive, like Spreading Plague, I guess, could be called an offensive reaction in a way. And then Frailty Trap and Inertia Trap. And we've already gone over Inertia Trap like a little bit. I think the card is currently very, very good, because a lot of relevant decks in the meta will send like buffed attacks. So having Inertia Trap is just really powerful. And you chose to also run Frailty Trap, which I think, again, with Lexi leaving, has gotten a bit worse. Did you expect a high enough number of warriors for this card to be relevant, or what was the idea with including it?
I mean, yes, the card was completely insane against Lexi, so obviously it's not as good anymore.
Yep.
But it's still good into warriors, and it's still good into brutes. Like if you think about it, if you're playing against a brute, it's a defense reaction, which is good, but also it's oftentimes like KO is swinging like claw for 4 in reactions, discard my agile windup, right? Sure. And then it's another block 4, right? And you can be like, oh, our inertia is better there because then you keep them off an arsenal. But a lot of the times I found KOs just aren't arsenaling at all.
Yeah.
So Frailty Trap has this really nice, like, oftentimes it blocks 4, or if they then play a card from arsenal, it's blocking 5. So it's like that's a pretty big deal.
Okay, sure, yeah.
But I'm not 100% certain here. Like this is a choice that I'm like, okay, I don't really know which one is going to end up being more valuable. So I'll just play 2 and 2. Like, because I wanted to play 4 total. Yeah. But is it 3 and 1 or is it 2 and 2? I think it's pretty close. I think they're similar cards.
Okay. No, I think that makes sense. Like, just sort of hedge your bets a little bit either way, right? And then you can just bring both and then kind of try it out and see which one works. Obviously, Frailty Trap is going to feel huge if you can line it up at the right time, right? If you play against a Bolton, for example, and they go for a Sabres combo and you have a Frailty Trap on that turn, you're going to be like, this card is never leaving my deck ever again, because it's a 1-card 9 block or something silly like that, right? Same against Kasai, if they manage to get off a big like Blood on Her Hands turn, this card is insane. So I can definitely still see it. I do think Inertia Trap is probably a bit better currently if you're talking about a overall like all comers kind of deck. where you just go, I'm not hedging in any particular direction. I just want cards that are good against basically everything, right?
Right.
And I think then Inertia Trap is probably the better of the two, but I can totally see still running Frailty Trap just because there's a bunch of decks where it's still really good. Yeah. Okay, then we got Oasis Respite at 3 copies. I'm assuming this is not just for Kano, or was this like your Kano respect card?
Obviously, it does respect Kano.
Sure.
You kind of need it most of the time against
Mm-hmm.
Kano. But I also just love this card a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I probably play it in too many matchups. Just because like when you have Tunic up, it feels so good.
Mm-hmm.
And even like pitching a card that you like don't necessarily want in your hand and might want to see second cycle for it is totally fine.
Yep.
Sometimes it really sucks.
Yeah.
You know, especially it's like on turns where, I really need another block 3 here, and I have a 2-card block 4. This is not good. So for that reason, I don't play it into the brutes.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
But against like every other matchup, it feels great. Like in the Dromai matchup, I Oasis and Nazvali. Really good.
Yep.
There's not as much split damage anymore because Rosetta Thorn is out of the game.
Yeah.
But I mean, the card does a lot. There is a decent amount of dominate threats.
Yeah.
Right now, and this really helps get around that. So I think the card is just really good. And a lot of times you're behind in life, so it gets you a life.
Yeah, for like a fatigue strategy, I think it does get a bit better because you have this tendency to be lower life than your opponent. So it's sort of like a 1 cost 5 block-ish, you know, especially against Brute, where like there's basically no on-hits and you don't really have to care about anything. So I do like Oasis. I used to be an Oasis hater. Like if you had asked me, I don't know, 9 months ago what my thoughts were on this card, I would be like, I hate it. I hate that I have to run it because of Kano, but I hate it and I'm not bringing it into any other matchups. And I think I've sort of come around on it a little bit just because I've started to just accept that sometimes pitching to it isn't the end of the world, you know? Like, sure, it's not efficient and ideally you want it to line up with Tunic, but there are ways to make it work, right? Like, for example, pitching looking for a scrap to Oasis feels perfectly fine because you're just, okay, I can't play this looking for a scrap right now anyways because I don't have, for example, a target for it in the graveyard. It's a 2-block, so, you know, it doesn't really do anything. And then I can just pitch it to Oasis and have like an impactful way to use that turn. So, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And then Sigil. Fantastic card. I love sigils in Uzuri specifically. I think it's almost, I would say, the best card to have in Arsenal. I think in almost any given, you know, game state. Having a sigil in Arsenal is just so incredibly powerful against a variety of decks where they send a CNC at you and you just go like, okay, I don't care. Like, block 3, stay at the same life total, don't care about the on-hit effect, or, you know, you can bluff with it. You can send like a backstab or something. They block 6, you go, sweet, Arsenal Sigil, or you already have an Arsenal, sweet, play the Sigil, you know. It's just an extremely flexible card that has a lot of ways to utilize it. I'm not too sure about running 3. That's something where like I'm on 2 personally, just because I think you never want to see 2 sigils in the same hand unless it's your opening hand. Then it's extremely good, but otherwise I think 2 sigils in the same hand is kind of problematic. And I also don't really run it against decks where I really need to block. So like Kasai, for example, I've started taking out the sigils just because not being able to block on a critical turn where they send like, I don't know, Spoils of War, and I really want to stop them from getting copper, can be pretty devastating. It's fine into the brutes, because whether I block 3 or gain 3 is kind of the same thing when you're playing against a deck that has basically no on-hits. What was your experience running 3? Like, do you always board in 3 in matchups where you run it? Or is it sometimes like I bring in 2 maybe to sort of insulate against the chance of drawing 2 in the same hand? Or do you vary the number based on whether you go first or second, something like that?
I think I play 3 most of the time. because, again, we're trying to play for the late game. It's really good. It's just really, really good when you find it. And yeah, having 2 or 3 in one hand can be really bad, but like you have to think, okay, what are the odds that the blood on her hands turn aligns with exactly the double sigil turn, or
Sure.
what happened? Like, what are the odds the double sigil turn lands on exactly the spoils war turn? And I think those are odds that I am willing to take because of having 3 extra life in the Kasai match matters a lot. And Kasai really is like one of the very few decks that on hits matter. Like I think you might be correct to only play 1 or 2 into Katsu for that reason, because the odds that you need to block, like the odds that the double sigil turn lines up on a turn you need to block against Katsu is way higher.
Sure.
So I think maybe that would be right. But having just an extra 9 life in your deck somewhere, like you get to play these for free all the time.
Yeah.
Basically. Like where it's not costing you tempo, it's not costing you life, it's just +3 life.
Yep.
And even into the brutes, if like, yeah, they don't really have on hits, and their on hits, like if you have playing Sigil in response to their send packing feels so good.
Oh yeah, that's true.
At Arsenal, it's like you were send packing Sigil from Arsenal.
The best feeling against brutes is playing Sigil when they have a Reckless on the stack. That is the best feeling. Okay. Like when you're on 1 or 2, you dropped to 1 or 2 and they know, oh, I can get him now because I know I have a Reckless coming up, and you just Arsenal a Sigil and then have that sitting there. That's an extremely good feeling.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's a good card, definitely. Yeah, I love Sigil, specifically in Uzuri, because like hiding information from the opponent is what we do all the time, and Sigil is just like the best card to bluff with, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Overall. Okay, then we have a Remembrance here, which makes perfect sense. You play a fatigue list, you're trying to fatigue. Remembrance is probably one of the strongest fatigue tools that you can have, or like anti-fatigue tools against decks that can like counter fatigue you. What's like the most brought back card? Like what card do you bring back the most with Remembrance?
So first off, I'm going to say I hate this card so much.
Thank you. Same. I hate that it exists, and I hate that I sometimes have to run it.
Yeah.
I think we're on the same wavelength there.
Like occasionally I'm like, oh, this like I'll play the game. Like 9 out of 10 games, I like either won't bring it out or I won't like play it, and I'll just like pitch it for a dagger the entire game. Like it almost like I won't bring it in. And then like when I do, I don't play it, and I'm like, why is this in my deck? But then there's that one game where it's like you bring back, I think my most brought back cards are Codex of Frailty and Enlightened Strike.
Okay. Makes sense.
Because in the end game, those cards just do way too much. And then it's like those games, it's like, I can't cut Remembrance.
Yeah.
And you're just so sad that you can't cut this terrible card.
I just kind of like, I don't think it's too strong. Like I think this Remembrance arms race that you sometimes get when like there's a fatigue deck that's sitting at the top, like the Oldhim meta that we had, where decks were just starting to run like 1 and then 2 and then 3 copies of Remembrance just to sort of like counteract the other Remembrances. That was kind of stupid. I just hate the card on like a conceptual level for what it represents, and I don't know. Like I think we're like I said, we're on the same wavelength there. It's just but it's a very strong card in very specific situations. Yeah.
When it's good, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And every other time, it's pretty mid.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. I would imagine like against Dromai, probably you just bring back poppers, right?
You just get back 6s.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, and then finally, last card, we have 1 copy of Spreading Plague. What was the idea with running this? Because your deck doesn't like run a lot of very threatening cards, I would say, in general. Like I've talked with Xavier the other day, the guy who beat like 5 victors in a row in Road to Nationals in Japan, and he ran like 3 copies of Spreading Plague. and I think like 12 blue stealth cards. So his general idea was like present a blue stealth, opponent blocks with 2 cards, spreading plague, like that kind of thing. He said he wants to get people to block, and he wants to incentivize the opponent to block so he can use spreading plague to damage them. So is this sort of like a kind of same idea why you run this card, or what was the idea there?
I don't think we're really on the same page there. I did see Xavier's list, and I did like try out an edited version of it. I was like, oh, this is looking like kind of interesting. And I did not have very much success with it. Okay. But like I was like, wow, this deck would be crazy good into Guardian. And then I saw like your headline actually that was like, oh, he beat 5 victors. I was like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, yes, this makes a lot of sense. But the card just like, I think 3 is too many, just because not every deck is going to be blocking you. And then you have this problematic card in your hand where you can't really pre-commit it to anything. So like a lot of other cards, even like Shred, you can just like pitch Dagger and like that's fine. But Spreading Plague, especially if you're running 3, is not like that. It's like you're like, oh, I have to hold this card. And if they don't block, you've just like wasted a dagger swing and a card.
Yeah.
And it's just really rough. But the exception is if you play it in the end game, it just wins the game.
Yeah.
So that's why I really like 1. One copy of Spreading Plague won me multiple games over the weekend, because it's like we're at this weird point where they're taking 1 dagger and then blocking out my 6
with 3 cards.
And I only have and I only have like 1 or 2 6s left in the deck, right? But this could be like my last copy of Already Dead, right? And then they block 3 cards because like they're up on fatigue, or they're like they have a strong enough 2-card hand, and then it's like the Spreading Plague comes down and they just die.
Yeah, that's pretty
so
strong.
One of them is really good in the end game, and I love 1.
I do like that it's the only assassin attack reaction that has like 0 restrictions. You can play it on a CNC, you can play it on a looking for a scrap, whatever. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't care. You can play it on a dagger. They just, it's just very flexible in that regard. It's obviously also a great card to have in your opening hand, interestingly enough, because you can frequently incentivize the opponent to block with like 2 to 3 cards. And then you just start a game with like free damage basically that way. Is that actually something you would do in your list? Or do you think this card is going to be more relevant if I pitch it away for the late game just because of the way I try to play the game?
Honestly, you saying that makes a ton of sense. I'm just like, oh, that does sound really good. I would definitely do that if I had the opportunity. I don't think I've had that chance. I've never like drawn in like turn 0.
Yeah.
But if you have the opportunity at any point in the game to give your opponent 3 Blood Rot Pox, you should do it.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
No.
So just if that lines up, just do it. Like don't get cute with it. Just take the hand that is offered, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
One other thing that's really good about Spreading Plague is they usually, when they're blocking, they usually don't have only blues left in their hand. They're usually trying to keep like a red and a blue.
Yeah.
So you basically always get some amount of damage in, which I think is super.
That's true. Or they just give up their entire turn to go like Arsenal and then pitch into Bloodrot or something like that. That happens sometimes, but I'll take that. Like free tempo is fine by me.
100%.
Provided you draw into something that can actually utilize it, which is, it's Uzuri. Sometimes you draw hands that are like a shred, 2 blue stealth cards and a defense reaction, and you just start to cry. It happens. Especially when you just had a big tempo swing and then you draw into that and you just go like, all right.
I hope my opponent blocks this sedate.
Yep. And then they don't, and you just go like, god damn it. But yeah, it happens. It's Uzuri. We have some variants. It's a fact of life. Can't really do anything about it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about sideboarding choices just during this whole thing. Is there anything that stands out still where you would go like, okay, if anybody wants to try out this deck, This is stuff where I sideboard these cards for that matchup, that kind of thing. Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, so a general rule is you're totally happy playing more than 60.
Mm-hmm.
And in a ton of matchups, you're just going to play every card in your sideboard. You know, like into Warrior, you're playing all these cards. Into Guardian, you're playing all these cards. Into Dromai, I'm playing all these cards.
Okay.
You know, into stuff like Brute, you generally don't want to play. You don't want to play Remembrance or Death Touch because those cards don't block very well, and they're really hard to get to matter. Looking for a scrap, if you're like, oh, this opponent is just going to try and kill me as fast as possible, like if you know that, then that can also come out, but it's generally a card I like leaving in most of the time.
It's just really, really above rate, I think, if you can turn it on. So
yeah, it's super good. And then I don't know if there's really, like, if you think the game, your opponent is going to get ahead of you on fatigue, you should play Remembrance. Other than that, don't play Remembrance.
Okay.
I'm trying to think about like all of the different matchups. It's like there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, yeah, that's true. Like obviously, you know, D-reacts come out if you play against Kano, that kind of stuff, but you know, to be fair, occasionally they will run like single attacks, something like Nourishing. I have seen that, but
luckily for the Kano matchup, you're running Balance of Justice and Blacktick Whisperers.
Yeah,
so you don't even need to worry about that.
That's true. You have that covered. Yeah, that's true. Just block that when they send it, and you get to go. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that about sums it up. So obviously, if any of you have any particular specific questions where you go like, okay, I have trouble with this one matchup, like how do I sideboard against that? Just leave them down in the comments below the video, and we can try to answer them that way. So if there's anything that you think hasn't been answered, just let us know, and we can get to that. Okay, all right. So that takes care of the entire list, and that means it is now time to go into our test matchup. Okay, we've got a Katsu. So I think for Katsu, is this like what you would run in terms of equipment?
Yeah, I'm happy with this.
Okay, so you wouldn't run Balance of Justice even though they sometimes play Art of War?
They could have Art of War, but you probably get multiple mask triggers, and it's really good for blocking the breakpoints.
Okay. What do you bring in terms of sideboard?
We're bringing in the defense reactions.
Yep.
Of course.
Oasis, I guess?
Yeah, I'm bringing the Oasis.
Okay. Sigils or no
sigils? I would bring in, like I was saying earlier, I think I would bring in 2.
Okay. Makes sense, yep.
You're not bringing the Remembrance.
Yep.
And what are we cutting? I would actually cut the looking for scraps here.
Yep, sure.
They're just awkward.
Where are they? I'm blind. Here.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And yeah, the Spreading Plague doesn't really do anything, so I think this looks fine.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Let's go into it. We're going first.
Yeah.
So let's just do this. Okay. So we have a shred here. That's kind of nice because we can probably push a little bit of damage, but
he's running 65 cards.
Yep.
I'm pretty happy to just Spider's Bite CNC him.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And Arsenal another CNC.
Yep. That sounds good, yeah. We're probably getting 3 cards out of their hand that way.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's leaking 1 with the CNC, but with the Spider's Bite, but let's see how it goes. And he's running Mask of Momentum. Okay, that's interesting. I think against an Uzuri, specifically if you're thinking you might get fatigued, probably running Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is the better option.
I agree. Tenacity is
really annoying. Is definitely a card, yeah. Like that's an addition to Katsu and Fai that's really not to be understated. Very powerful card. Okay, he's just blocking 6 here, I assume. Yep. Okay,
that's
another whelming. So we got 2 red whelmings out. That's actually very powerful.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
Left in the deck. Very strong. Okay, that doesn't really matter. There we go. Okay. Bit of an awkward hand here, but I guess we can just block with these 3 and then send a CNC if it comes down to it.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
Kind of depends. Maybe they don't arsenal anything, and then we'll have to see what we do. But yeah, I don't mind seeing a very early Codex of Frailty because I can just pitch that.
Yeah.
What's your plan into Kodachis? Because he's going to be sending these a lot. Do you typically
Yeah.
let the first one pass and then block the second, or do you never block Kodachis?
The first one, I mean, right now, obviously, this one hits because it's just not threatening at all.
Yep.
But we'll see we'll see what he does. If he goes for another one, then his turn probably isn't that scary. You know?
Yep.
Because he's probably not going to surging us, and surging turns are like the ones that we care about the most.
So he does have another one.
He has another one, but I imagine that we're probably going to block 6 on the next attack. So we should probably just let this hit.
Yep, makes sense. Because that's one thing you can do against Mask of Momentum decks is just block the second Kodachi to stop them from getting the mask trigger. But okay, and he just sends in a Descendant here.
Yeah.
I think I'm happy to just block 3, and then if he has some kind of combat trick, we have the Sink Below to cover it up.
Yeah,
so
for
I
sure.
would probably block with Cut to the Chase here.
Yep, that's good.
Yep.
If he wants to break Breaking Scales, that's amazing.
I love that. If he breaks Breaking Scales here, he does actually. Okay, so that's interesting.
So, do we want to let this hit? Probably not.
I think we sink here. Yeah, we don't want to give him the Katsu trigger. It's kind of bad, sinking for like 1 damage, but I still think the fact that we got Breaking Scales out and the fact that it would draw him a card from Mask of Momentum, I think we're good sinking here.
Yeah.
And then if he has like
his bonds, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because his arsenal.
Do we want to sink anything? I guess we could sink the Shakedown, but because
I would sink the Shakedown.
Yeah, just see what we get. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, he does have the natural bonds. That's fair. Probably grabs a Whelming, because I think that's kind of the only thing he has right now. Or Winds of Eternity, I guess, but that doesn't really do anything. He does actually go for the Winds. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we block that? Because he might get another 2 Chain Links.
I would block this.
Yeah, probably, because he's probably only going to throw the Winds and then Arsenal a card, I guess.
Yeah.
That's probably his plan here.
And then we probably just get 2 cards from him from the CNC in our arsenal.
That works.
Yeah.
Yep, we let that hit. That's fine. 2 damage. Don't care about that too much.
No.
He does get a Katsu trigger here, but he doesn't have Go again, so I don't think that's
he breaks snaps here.
He could, yeah. He could. Yep, and he's arsenaling. Okay, sure. And then we just do this. And then if we get really lucky, he's drawn a hand of 2 blocks here. But I kind of doubt it.
I mean, him losing the breaking last turn definitely makes this way harder to block.
I think that was probably like just too early to use the breaking.
I agree.
On a like 5-card hand from us. Okay, blocks with Dishonor to get that into the graveyard. That makes sense.
Note about this matchup, we don't really care about getting Dishonored.
Okay, right. Because the plan is to just fatigue. Okay. Makes sense, yeah. All right. Okay, bunch of options here. I don't love seeing all of these codices so early, but we could actually go Spider's Bite CNC with the codex here because we have Tunic coming up.
Yeah.
So that's actually kind of nice. 100 wins? Huh.
Yep.
I guess we block that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to deny the Katsu trigger?
I'm blocking the Shakedown here.
Shakedown, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. Because there's the possibility that he just doesn't do anything else that's threatening this turn. And we can, like, Spider's Bite, Leave No Witnesses, and Arsenal the Codex.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, I'm not hating that. That's okay.
Yeah.
It just pushes 3 damage on us. Sure. And I don't think we take, we just take this Kodachi. That's also not that relevant.
I think it might have been right to block with the black text here.
Okay.
Just because the potential, like, we're about to throw Spider's Bite, Leave No Witnesses. And if he doesn't block...
Leave No Witnesses doesn't do anything here, though, right? Like, we
no,
could just, we could overpitch, get the CNC back, and then we have, in case we draw into an aces, we just have the tunic up.
I think we definitely just want to throw the Leave No Witnesses here.
Okay.
Like, sure, he doesn't have an arsenal, but it's just 4 damage, and we get a Codex of Frailty in the arsenal for a turn that he's not at his most threatening.
Okay, sure.
Right? So here we're probably getting a card off the top of his deck.
We might have blocked with the Mask of Perdition. Just to, make that, like, because I think Leave No Witnesses is probably one of the better cards to crack the mask on. The best is obviously Plunder the Poor.
Yeah.
Just because I think there's almost nothing except for Surging Strike in a Katsu deck. And
the reason I was thinking about blocking with black text here is you could just black text here and then play Codex and play another Leave No Witnesses.
Sure.
Or black text here and play CNC.
Yep. True.
But I don't think we need to.
Yeah, I think we're fine. Let's see what we get. We got a red bonds. Nice.
That's pretty good.
Don't hate to see that.
No.
Okay. All right, we can still do the whole backstab into CNC thing. So like Spider's Bite, Codex, CNC. Okay, he has a Be Like Water here. We just block that, I guess, with the Frailty Trap.
I like giving him the Frailty Trap. I think there's a good shot. He's got, like, Kodachis here, but...
Or do we block, and then if he has, like, Ancestral, we Frailty Trap?
I think he probably does have Ancestral.
Yeah.
Like, and if we want to hedge around that, it's better to give him Mask and then block with the Frailty Trap.
Oh, that's good, actually. Yeah, fair.
So we're overblocking 1, which is, like, kind of negative value,
Yep.
but we are shutting off basically the rest of his turn.
Yep, unless he has, like, double Ancestral or something, or, like, an Out of War on top of it, but...
Yeah. But if he has that, like, I think that's totally fine. And then we just, like, play the rest of our turn very defensive and hit him pretty hard next turn.
Sure. So we turned off Kodachis. That's pretty nice. It's actually one thing that, like, normally it's not that relevant because they typically start with the Kodachis, but with Be Like Water, because it specifically doesn't cost any pitch, I think that actually makes Frailty Trap more relevant into Katsu.
Yeah, this looks like a really good start of a turn.
Okay, and now it's probably just E-Strike for 7.
Yeah.
I would imagine arsenaling the last card. Oh no, it's actually 5 go again. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I guess we block with Plunder first here.
Yeah, that seems fine.
I don't know what the last card is. Like, what is he sending after this?
I have no idea.
That's kind of the thing. Yeah, I think we just block for value here. Actually, let's block like this.
Oh, sure. You don't want to use the Tunic resource.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, maybe it's Hurt and Cross Trap CNC?
Could be. If so, that kind of punishes us, but...
But it's fine, because we can still easily block 6.
Oh, it's Assault the Wound, okay.
Oh.
Or 3, yeah, I guess we just block that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure. Seems good.
That's fine. Yep, and now we'll just go with the plan here.
Cool. Old Faithful.
Yep. It's been a while since I've been able to do that, to be honest. For some reason, it hasn't really lined up in any games that I've recently had. But it is one of the most, I would say, impactful 2-card hands in the game, probably.
Yeah. And Ninja just doesn't have the armor to really deal with this.
Yeah. Particularly Katsu. Like,
Yeah.
Fi can sometimes they just throw like 2 pieces of equipment and 1 card in front of it, and they're good to go in the late game. Obviously, in the early game, I don't think they give you their Tiger Strike Shuko.
Yeah. But Katsu's going to have to give us 3 cards here if he wants to stop it. I think there's a good chance he just takes 6.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
That is an interesting card to discard here.
He discarded a Reinforce. Okay, maybe he has 2 of them. That's actually possible. If he does, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because then he can just go, what?
No.
Huh.
I think he does have another Reinforce, and he has made a mistake.
That could be.
Or he only had 2 blocks, and he can't block this out. Like, he would have had to play, like, block with Snatch and play 2 Reinforce.
Maybe. Okay, he has Ancestral Harmony. Snatch.
Reinforce?
Reinforce, yeah, okay.
Oof, that's rough.
That is rough.
It is not a good hand.
Interesting. And Isolate, yeah, okay. I think Isolate is fine to Arsenal.
That's going to Arsenal, baby.
Yep. Not hating that. And we have an Annihilate or Already Dead to get it out, so that works. Sure.
Here's another, like,
So which one would you want to dominate in? The Already Dead for more damage, or the Annihilate for the higher chance to grab silver?
So once again, I kind of wish, I think this is a crazy good black text turn.
True, yeah.
Because we also, like, if we get to play this entire hand, we also get an Inertia Trap in Arsenal.
Yep, that's true.
So I think I want to swing the Spider's Bite and then
Isolate Already
Dead. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, we probably should have blocked with the black text at some point.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But if he's not blocking, which, I mean, he got 100. There's 100 wins in his arsenal. So I kind of am not sure he's going to block this at all. And if he doesn't, the threat of Mask Perdition is pretty high on the Annihilate the Armed attack.
Yep, definitely, yeah. Because he does run a bunch of cards. Like, he runs Reinforce, he runs Art of War, right? We've already seen a couple of cards that are hits for Already Dead, actually. So
yeah.
Okay.
And I do want to activate Black Deck here.
Yeah,
it's just so
100%. Like, I think the value is just too good to not do it. Okay, sure. We got a Tenacity. All right, sure. And then we send this.
This is just a really, really good turn. There's still a Spider's Bite active.
Yep.
Yeah, he's not blocking.
Yep.
Activate Mask. Crazy.
Okay, Surging Strike, Ancestral Harmony. Okay, so we get 1 silver off of the entire turn. It's all right. It's enough to buy back. Bad. What would you buy back here, actually? Mask or Boots?
I think I'm buying back the Mask. Just because I think it's more likely to be relevant, and it also, like, fuels more silver generation
down the line.
More easily. Yeah.
Makes sense, yeah. So this hand is kind of odd because it doesn't really do anything.
Yes.
But
our opponent can 5 per hand.
Yep. So I think we're fine just blocking with this entire hand and then maybe trying to set up a Sigil in Arsenal.
And
100 wins. Yeah, I think we just block with Frailty Trap here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the ability to +1 it for Katsu because it came out of Arsenal.
Yep.
Turns off the Kodachis.
Yep. Oh, right. So it actually gets -1 by the Frailty Trap. Yeah, that's pretty solid. Yeah. Unless he has like Art of War and Ancestral in the same hand again, which can sometimes happen, but yeah.
Sure. But man, it would feel bad to play that here.
Yeah. definitely not the best card to put that on.
Yeah.
Okay, Descendant next, sure, for 2.
Yep.
I think we still need to block this, right?
Yep.
Just to deny the Katsu trigger.
He's definitely coming in with another card.
So just block with the already dead here, I guess.
Yeah.
Should be fine.
Yeah, no matter what, we're probably blocking with the shakedown.
Like, we can't play it, right? I think this is realistically a turn where we just block with everything. Okay,
Yep.
he has a bonds, sure. Just had the natty bonds again, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That is not pumped, right? No, unfortunately.
It is not.
Sad.
We'll see what he banishes, and that can kind of tell us what to do.
Sure. He does have the Dishonor, but it's not live. Okay, he's going for another Descendant.
That is really bad. That means he almost definitely has another bonds in hand. Which means we shouldn't block this attack.
Okay, sure. Because we can't clean block it anyways, right?
Yeah, we can't clean block it unless we want to get flick. But he's also going to be threatening the mask if we block it.
Makes
with
sense.
The oh, never mind. Well, he's going to get a bonds, I guess. Okay.
Yeah. Now he is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about the same.
Yep. To be fair, I think he does. That's like that should be the last red bonds he has. I think if he's grabbing another one.
Yeah. That is the last red bonds. This is for 3.
Yeah, so we just clean block this.
Yep, block this.
Inertia trap the bonds, I guess.
Yep.
This is like easy to block. And we still deny the mask.
Yeah. So, yeah, Frailty Trap ended up being really, really good here.
I mean, yeah, because he has 1 remaining, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's gonna dishonor us, which I think we
There was no Surging Strike.
Oh, right, true. The dishonor isn't live. It's just 4. Okay.
It's just 4.
Enough. Yep. All right. So that's the only pumped attack that he's gonna send.
Yeah. It's not gonna matter. He doesn't have an arsenal.
Yeah. I guess we just take 4 here. Like, not really anything we can do.
The question is, like, do we play this defense reaction?
I guess it could be more impactful to just keep it. That's a good point, yeah. And then just play out the sigil.
I think we don't play it. I think we keep it in arsenal. This dishonor isn't really doing anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, fair. Nope. I like that. Just
this was his. He has no red bonds left. He played a yellow bonds as well. Get back mask. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay, yeah, that's a good hand.
That's great.
That's a very flexible hand. Can do a lot of things with it depending on what exactly he does. Starts with a Descendant again. All right, sure. Okay.
Another Art of War.
Pitching an Art of War.
I think I'm happy.
Do we respect the Ancestral? I think we kind of have to at this point, just because we haven't seen any of them.
I think we are respecting the Ancestral with the defense reaction in our arsenal.
Okay, that's a fair point, yeah. Okay, sure. Then I guess we just block with an Isolate.
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
He does have the Ancestral. And then we just Inertia Trap here.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah, that's a decent argument, yeah. So definitely good to keep that. And now he also cannot arsenal anything, so.
Which is kind of a non-bow with the Leave No Witnesses, but.
Sort of, yeah, fair. I mean, we can just send E-Strike for 7, you know, if we wanted to. If we can keep 2 cards, so I think that's fine. Let's see what he does next. Okay, 100 wins.
Yeah. I think we're blocking with the isolate.
Yep. Okay, Kodachi, yeah, I'm not blocking that.
Nope.
Just
And he loses his card in hand.
free damage for him. I mean, he might still play it depending on what it is, you know.
I mean, the Kodachi doesn't have to go again.
Oh, that's actually true, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's now a good question. Do we go leave no, Arsenal the E-Strike, or do we go E-Strike for 5, draw a card? I think leave no and then arsenaling the E-Strike is probably better.
I agree. Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
There's like 1 damage difference, and we get know what we arsenal over getting a random card off the top.
Actually, I think it's better to get a random card off the top here.
Okay.
Against Ninja and Lightning Strike and Arsenal can be pretty awkward.
True. Yeah, that's kind of clunky because you have to block a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay. Makes sense.
And we have not seen any Fate for Scenes. I think we've seen 1 sync.
Yeah, no aces either, and we have Tunic up, so.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot of really good hits off this draw.
There we go.
And yeah.
There we go.
So.
Fair. Yeah, okay. That's a good reasoning, yeah.
Like, if we had seen more of our defensive cards, I think it's reasonable, but.
No, that's totally fair. Arsenal this. Oh, another aces. That's a little bit clunky here, but it's okay. But this hand is actually kind of like, if he lets us keep a bunch of cards here, Eradicate with Cut to the Chase with a dagger in front is extremely scary.
I think this is actually a hilarious hand because we have the opportunity for double Oasis off of 1 pitch.
Yep.
And then we can break Tunic for Eradicate with the Cut to the Chase.
And then Cut to the Chase. Yeah, so we don't need to, we can't dagger, but yeah. Okay, yep. I like it.
You know, is this the type of opponent he's going to try and block out Eradicate? I don't think so.
Probably not. I don't know. It depends how much experience he has with this matchup. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
What?
I'm assuming he accidentally hit a button. Or maybe his hand is just truly unplayable. Oh no, yeah, he accidentally.
He wants to go undid the last.
Yeah. Let him. That was obviously not.
Yeah, no. That was a obvious mistake. Sure, like this is not request undo. So if he wants to undo stuff, he can just undo stuff. That's fine.
Yeah.
He just passed too quickly. It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. No problem. Okay, sure. Kodachi for 1. Pass. Let's go. Guessing next thing could be a surging.
Yep.
Oh no, it's another Kodachi. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we give mask here or just no respect? Yeah, we got double aces, true. Fair enough. With the aces still on the stack. Oh, he chooses go again and buff. Huh. Okay, sure. Not the modes I would normally go for, but alright. Thrust the Fist for 5, go again. Okay. Mask and then Oasis. I guess. Yeah.
It's just good. And he's going to throw something else, so it is worth pitching the shred.
Yep. Oh, he has an Ancestral. Okay.
Sure.
So he gets a card draw off the mask, actually, I think, here.
Oh, ooh. This might be worth Oasising again.
Do we Oasis again here? Just to prevent the card draw?
I mean, what's he going to throw? Like, what's in his hand? Is whatever in his hand is way better if he gets to draw another card.
That's true. Yeah, I guess so. Feels kind of bad, but yeah.
It does feel bad, but
wasting three of that prevention, but yeah, I think preventing the draw is worth it here.
Yeah. So
okay, he's just arsenaling. Yeah, all right. So we go Crack Tunic, Eradicate. I mean, we're not, I guess, realistically looking to make any silver off of this.
No.
Because he runs like Art of War, and we've seen all 3, and then I think he runs like maybe 1 or 2 Salt the Wound, maybe Tenacity in there, and then a couple of yellow bonds, and that's probably it.
Yeah. But
He's not
getting
blocking.
7 cards off the top of his deck.
Sure. Oh, he has Flick Flag. Okay. Do we flick a Nerf Scalpel here?
No.
Okay.
That dagger is pretty valuable.
Yep. Double Flick Flag. That's the turn where he has like 2 defense reactions. Okay, sure. That's fair.
That's how it goes.
They had to come at some point, I think. So that's.
I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't mind sinking this just so we don't have to worry about it, because I think that's the 3rd one.
That's the 3rd one. It's the last pump. Definitely sink it.
Yep.
Like, that card is going to be way worse in the middle of his pitch deck than it is here.
Mm-hmm.
And now we just like don't have to play around it for another 30 cards.
Yep. So it's coming up in, what is that, 7 turns? Yeah. All right. Just the CNC? Sure. I think we block Annihilate, Shred, Send a Plunder, Crack Mask, Arsenal Inertia.
Looks great.
Yep.
This is like ideal Uzuri gameplay. Block 6, send a 0 for 4.
Yep.
That's what it's about.
Ideal Contract Uzuri gameplay. we should probably add.
I guess I have my opinions. So.
I know a couple of players that would definitely agree with you, so just not the red line, folks.
Yeah. Like, what is this?
I do love that she has these like several archetypes, and they're really, all of them are viable. I think there were a lot of like contract doubters, but I think the fact that you won a Battle Hardened with that list, should finally just prove once and for all that this is a valid way to build this deck, valid archetype. The surging. I mean, it's a surging gone. You can't really hate that.
Even though it's a miss, it's a surging strike.
It's a surging strike,
We banished 2 red surging strikes.
Yep. Can't hate that.
No, that's the other thing about Contract. It's like, one of my games, it's like I played a Cut to the Chase on an Annihilate the Armed, and I saw a Blood Rush Bellow, and it's like, I'm not getting a silver, but this does not feel bad.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we got a Descendant. I think we just blocked that with a Backstab.
Yep.
Just feels good, especially because he pitched a red, so we know we're not getting Kodachi'd here.
Yeah. His hand is probably not very good. Yeah. Unless he has more yellow bonds. He has more yellow bonds.
He does have more yellow bonds, yeah. Yeah, I think we still block that, right?
Yep.
Probably with another Backstab, so.
Probably getting Dishonor.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if he has another Dishonor. I think. Oh, he does have one in the graveyard.
He has one.
The one he played earlier, sure.
And he's going to play it, and we're going to play a Nurture Trap and blow him out of the water.
Yep. That works.
He's probably just like looking through, making sure he has it.
He's actually taking a Fluster Fist, huh? So he's going for raw damage over the Dishonor, I guess?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, it's the same.
Damage is kind of the same, yeah.
It's a little too bad because it means the...
yeah, I think we still block Backstab here, so...
Yep.
Okay, and that's a Fluster for 4.
So the problem is he still has 2 cards in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And
he could have a Razor, yeah.
And he also still has Snaps.
He does have Snaps, yeah.
So it's like, what is this?
I think... Are we blocking this?
I
feel like the problem is we can't really clean block this, so he's getting a hit off of it either way.
I don't think we should block this.
I think we don't block this, yeah. And if he does want to crack Snaps here, let him.
Yeah.
I think that's the correct play. Yep, he's cracking Snaps. Sure. I wish we had a sink here. That would be, if that was a sink right now, that would feel awful for him.
Seems to be pretty good.
He's probably gonna Katsu discard here. No, actually not. Interesting. Oh, he has an Enlightened Strike. Okay, sure. That's fair. And that's for 5 draw card. Okay, sure. Yeah, makes sense.
This is
This hand is a bit awkward, to be honest, because like,
yeah.
I guess we can do Spider's Bite into Annihilate, but dropping to 9 doesn't feel great for that. And then he has another 5-card hand.
I think I prefer to block 6 here. Just because the hand doesn't do anything.
Yeah, fair.
Again, I'm not trying to race him down at this point in the game.
Just
He's used so many
life to
cards.
fatigue him. Makes sense. Yep.
Like, we do give him a 5-card hand, but we have a defense reaction in Arsenal.
So wait, he pitched 1 card, so now like the Ancestral is 3rd from the bottom, I think.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Okay, another hand with a lot of options.
Yep.
Nice.
And he broke Snaps last turn for an extra 4 damage. I think Snaps is usually worth more than 4 damage, so.
Okay, Yellow Surging.
Yellow
Surging feels kind of bad because we kind of have to give 2 cards here.
No, I'm giving the Flick Flags.
You're giving
the Flick Knives. I'm giving Flicks. 100%.
Okay, all right. Interesting. Okay, sure, yeah. Flicks and Plunder, I guess?
No, we're never playing the E-Strike.
Right, yeah, makes sense. Okay.
We're giving Plunder on the next attack, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah, he can't have Art of War and he can't have Ancestral. So unless he has a Razor and he can't target this with Razor, we're good, yeah.
Yep. Flick Knives, I know people are really high on it, but sometimes it just is Blade Break 1.
Sure. Okay, fair enough. Okay, Be Like Water. I mean, this is just an easy, clean block 3. Sure.
Yep. Yep, here come the Gadachis.
Sure, hit me.
We're taking these.
Yep. Now that makes sense. Like blocking 6 on the last turn cycle, just to make sure it takes longer to get us into Kodachi lock range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then hopefully he doesn't have CNC.
That would suck. Yeah.
That would suck.
Nope, it's a Snatch. Okay, sure. That's kind of interesting because he already has an Arsenal, so I don't feel too bad. I think we're blocking with the Inertia Trap here, sending the Leave No, and then arsenaling the Sigil.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. He might have a Razor, actually. He might have a Razor on this. I don't think we can play around the Razor.
I don't think we can reasonably play around that.
Yeah. Okay, if he has it, okay, we're not blocking, like...
Yeah.
Because if he does have the Razor, he doesn't get an Arsenal either way. He does not.
He didn't have it.
Okay, fair enough.
So.
Or he's waiting for us to play around it. Could also be. Maybe he's just ballsy that way.
Dang.
Nope, he doesn't have it. Okay, sure.
Yeah, he draws 2 cards.
Yep.
Can't use any of it.
Yep.
Kind of amusing.
It kind of is, yeah. I mean, he does get to choose what to Arsenal. So this is like it's not completely wasted, obviously, because there's cards you'd rather have in Arsenal, but yeah. It's not great, obviously. Okay, and then we just do this. We should be coming around on the first codex we pitched, I think. Sometime soon-ish.
Yeah. The codexes should be pretty backbreaking at the end of the game here.
Yep. And we have Tunic up, so if we draw like a blue and codex, we can do that CNC play again. Okay, he's just letting that hit. Sure. Yeah, we're choosing that. Oh, that's his last. Oh, so 2 defensive options are gone. That's kind of nasty. Yeah. Okay, I like that. And they were really both red, good. So we're getting some silver. Very nice.
Yeah, getting that silver back is huge.
Yep. Okay, it's like
there's
straight up CNC, and we have the shred, but we have like 2 defense reactions. I think we're good.
Yeah, looks great.
Mhm.
Like at worst, this hand blocks for 14.
Pretty
And if we have
solid.
to block 14 with this hand,
Yep.
well, we might have to block 14 with this hand.
Depends, I guess. It's kind of annoying because this is annoying. I think we're blocking Shred and Fate Foreseen, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feels kind of bad, but for worst case, we can still send a CNC off of Tunic.
Yep.
Or
Shred
we
Fate.
Arsenal the CNC, that's also a valid option. Or we Arsenal Fate Foreseen. Bunch of ways we can play this, but
I don't want to give Tunic here, basically.
No. One option is we block with Shred and CNC, but I think we don't give the CNC immediately here, right?
Yeah, I think it's just Shred Fate. I mean, if you think like, would I rather have a Fate Foreseen or Command Conquer? And I'd rather have the Command Conquer in hand still.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we can bottom this just to get to our codices faster. Doesn't really do anything for us here. Okay, he has the Natty Whelming. That's kind of annoying.
Yeah, but I'm okay to block with the Command and Conquer here.
Okay.
Because I don't want this to hit.
Yeah, of course, no. Like, we don't want this to hit ever, but the question is, does he have the Natty Bonds here? That would be kind of insane, but...
I think it's fine, because we still have a Fate Foreseen, and if we have to spend the Fate Foreseen this turn, that's fine.
Yeah.
And if we don't, we can just Arsenal it.
Yep, we just Sigil Arsenal it. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, that's fair. Okay, he just Arsenals. That's fine.
So, this isn't even a bad turn.
So we get the mask back. Sure. Okay, there's a Codex and a blue, and we have 3 defense reactions this turn to work with, so that's pretty solid. I think we're in a fairly good spot here.
I'd strongly agree.
And we have, I think, so this is 15. Currently, the Ancestor should be 5th card from the bottom, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So he's going to draw it in like 3 turns.
Yep.
Okay, Kodachi, we're just taking that.
And I think this game we've really seen why Mask Prediction is so like valuable. We've gotten those extra banishes. We've gotten the extra life, the extra breakpoints. Yeah.
Okay, now he has the Razor. Okay, that's interesting.
We have the double defense reaction.
Yep. Yeah, I think we do have to spend 2 here, right? Oh, he has the double Razor, actually. Okay. Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, it's kind of awkward because we now have to block. Do we actually need to block here? He doesn't really...
We block with 2 defense reactions. Yeah. He has nothing in hand.
And he can't.
There's no
Katsu.
on hit.
Yeah.
There's just nothing to be scared of.
Yep. This is fine.
This is
Sedate, I think we synced that.
Yeah. Like it's fine to go in Arsenal next turn, but it's not the best. And I think we do sync.
Do we sync the Fate Foreseen?
I think we should sync the Fate. Actually, it might have been right to keep the Sedate just because so we like drew it.
Yeah, so we can double dagger, you mean, or?
Yeah, for double dagger.
Okay, sure.
But it's pretty fine.
Yeah, it's alright. Fair enough.
Yeah. This was a very unfortunate turn for him.
Yep. Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I guess we just... oh, he has Assault the Wound, okay. I mean, for 4... Yeah, I guess we block with the Already Dead, like...
Yeah, seems great.
Fine by me.
Yeah. I think this is...
Oh, that's actually a mask trigger, but that's not so bad because that way he gets an Arsenal.
Yeah. I forgot about the mask trigger. We should have given Perdition there.
Honestly, I don't mind the mask trigger because I'd rather him have something that's still in his deck to Arsenal than getting back like a red surging or something here. But yeah, I guess getting back the
That's fair.
surging, yeah, fair enough.
It would have forced him to discard a card,
Yeah,
basically.
that's true. That's true.
So forgot about the mask.
Yep.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, same.
But
it happens. Yeah.
But this is still a good turn.
Yep. 100% turns off his Kodachis. He can't really efficiently block this, so yep, he's just not blocking it. He just goes to 2. All right.
Loses a Descendant Gust Wave.
Not the best here, but it's okay.
Not too bad. It's fine.
It's all right. Okay.
And his Ancestral should still be on the next hand.
Yeah, Ancestral is on the next hand, I think. So we can probably just clean block this with the Sink below.
Yeah.
And then probably...
Is this his third Art of War turn? I don't remember if he played 2 or 3.
I think he pitched 1 or 2 of them. I think he might still actually have an Art of War. Yeah, he does definitely have Art of Wars. I think he pitched 2 of them, actually. So he probably has an Art of War here. To be honest, like, we can Oasis if we really need to.
Yep.
I guess.
The idea is, like, do we give him Mask Sync here or just Sync?
I guess we can give him Mask Sync, I think, is fine to respect the Art of War, because I'm almost certain he has an Art of War in this hand.
Yeah.
I think this is fine. Do we sync anything? Yeah, we cycle out the yellow shred, I would say.
I don't think so.
Actually, I think we can kill him, yeah.
I think we can just kill him.
Yep.
So, I don't think his turn... I don't think he'll be able to present 11 damage from here.
That's true, yeah. Oh, he does have the natty whelming. Okay, that's... okay.
Okay, well, we're given... I think we're on the blockout plan. Try and play around Art of War.
Yep.
So, I mean, do we give him Tunic here, basically, is the question.
I guess we could. I feel like if he did have Art of War, he would have already used it. Just to get more options, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, whelming for 5 is still... Like, I don't know. I guess with the whelming active, because he would draw, like, 2 cards, it might be worth saving it. The thing is, like, he can't draw 2, right? If he banishes. Like, he doesn't have the option to go banish, draw 2 here. He has to go, like, +1 and then, I don't know, go again. So it would be mostly used for just the +1. So he would draw, like, 1 card.
Yeah, I think it's just Oasis.
I think it's just Oasis, yeah. And we pitched a yellow shred?
Sure, yep. Dagger Nyx is pretty strong. Actually... Yeah, just thinking.
He doesn't actually have the Art of War. Maybe he's arsenaling the Art of War just to get like a big turn. The Kodachi for 0, yeah.
Yep. Spade Kodachi for 0.
Yeah.
All right. So
the Kodachi for 0. Okay.
I am not sure if he has any 3-block attacks left. But I do know that he has an Ancestral in hand. Yep. So I think we should swing the Nerve Scalpel.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Yep.
Because...
Yeah. Makes sense.
He could give Ancestral Mask to block it out. Yep.
He might have it in the next hand.
Sure.
To be honest, not entirely sure. It's either this hand or the next one. But I mean, he has to block here, so...
He's got to give 1 card in mask or 2 cards.
Yep.
Or 3 cards. But
he has the
okay, he has Dishonor.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sure. And mask. Okay.
Sure. Makes sense.
That works.
But I don't think he's going to be able to threaten enough damage for the rest of the game to really.
No, probably not.
Do anything. Yeah.
Kodachis we can just ignore. We have such a life lead on him that it just doesn't matter.
Yep.
And worst comes to worst, we can go Codex into Leave No Witnesses as a 1-card hand, and that's pretty solid. So, okay, Kodachi. I also don't think the Katsu triggers matter anymore, because he doesn't really have anything left in the deck that's threatening that he can draw.
Yeah.
There's the Armor. Okay, sure. Buff and banish to draw 2. Okay, fatigues himself even faster. Not hating that. Banishing the Salta Wound here is interesting because, like, with 2 Kodachis already hitting, that's actually one of the more threatening attacks I think he has left.
Yeah.
I also don't think drawing 2 here actually helps him.
No, I think it's actually really bad.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, E-Strike. Maybe withdraw a card, I guess, because he did choose. Oh no, he just buff and draw 2.
I think this is for 8.
Or it's coming for 8. Yeah, okay, it's coming for 8. Sure.
Yeah.
Do we give 9? I think not, right?
I think we give 6.
We give 6, and then we go dagger into. Yeah.
Into Codex. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We
have so far not done a fantastic job of tracking this Ancestral, but I bet it's that card.
It could be the card that's now in Arsenal, or he draws it up.
I'd like to gamble it's that card. So it's Spider's Bite.
Spider's Bite?
Yep.
All right.
He has to block it.
Yep, he does. Actually, do we get Leave No? I think it makes more sense to get Annihilate or something, right?
Yep. Annihilate's better.
That's the one situation where Death Touch would actually be nice, just because it's bigger damage.
Yeah. On hit Death is better than Destroy the Arsenal.
Definitely, yeah. Where do we have it? Annihilate, there we go. I mean, realistically, we could have gone for Nyx, because it just doesn't matter at this point which one we send. But he has to give 2 to 3 cards here. Okay,
yeah.
2, sure. Sure.
Seems good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just Fluster Fist for 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just block with the Sedate or something.
Yep,
and then we just go Isolate, Leave No, and then we can shred it, and that should be the win.
Should be the win. You can swing daggers. You have too many options here.
Yeah. Okay, here's the Ancestral.
It was in the Arsenal.
It was in the Arsenal, actually, yeah. But he just resets Arsenal here, I think, so.
Well, he has 3 cards in deck, so.
True, he might not actually Arsenal.
I don't think he's gonna. I don't think.
Yeah, he does Arsenal, okay.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think we just go for the Isolate.
Yep.
Should be enough. He only has 2 blocks left, I guess.
Yep.
Okay, sure.
You don't even have to activate Uzuri here. You can just shred.
Yeah, I'm going for the maximum disrespect. Killed by Isolate.
Right. Oh!
Oh, nice. He does have the defensive Art of War,
Huge.
Right?
He's got it.
We did know that was actually a thing that he had, yeah. Fair enough.
Wow.
Nice. Like, if that was the only thing we had, it would be nice. But yeah, we still killed it, so it's fine. Nice. All right. Solid. Good game. Very nice.
So that's the general idea.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, makes sense. Like, I mean, average value 11.2 is like still fine. Obviously, like the average damage threatened per turn is gonna look lower than you would have in like an offensive Uzuri list. But just comes with the nature of playing like a defensive game, you know.
Zeros lower averages pretty quick.
Yep.
You learned that in school.
True.
When you forget to turn in assignments.
Yeah, but nice. Yeah, I like it. So if anybody out there is like looking for a very defensive, like more fatigue-oriented Uzuri deck, because I think there hasn't been a lot of people on something like that in the recent, I don't know, half a year or so. Like for the most part, it's been variations of like either red line or sometimes a little more like mid-rangey. But I think the really hardcore fatigue archetype has not really been played a lot, I think. So that's definitely something where there's like space to explore. And I think the fact that you just won a Battle Hardened with this just shows that this is absolutely a very legit deck that has the legs to win events and that you can play. So if anybody out there is interested in more defensive Uzuri that still gets to play with the regular Uzuri tricks of like switching cards, shakedown, you know, reactions, all of that good stuff, then this is the deck for you. So if you want to try it out for yourself, obviously link to the deck will be down in the description of the video as always. Like I already mentioned, if you have any questions about the deck, leave them down below in the comments, or you can find both of us on the so-called purple Discord, like the FabTCG Discord. We're both active there. And if you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them there. And yeah, with that, do you have any last words for the people out there, Caleb?
Not really. I think the deck's pretty good. I think it's way better when Dromai leaves. I think this deck is going to be pretty terrifying when Dromai leaves.
Yeah, I
agree. Be prepared if you don't want to play it, but you should watch out.
Give it a try. Like, if only to learn what your opponents can do. It's a fun deck to play, definitely. Uzuri is the most fun I've had in Flesh and Blood since I started playing the game. So definitely, I highly recommend checking the deck out. All right, that's it for today. Thank you, Caleb, again for being here and doing this with me. Congratulations again on your Battle Hardened win and on what was it? You pulled like a cold foil legendary in a Welcome to Wraith Alpha draft the next day.
Yes.
Did I hear that correct? Yeah. So
we had this Alpha draft scheduled for months, like the day after the Battle Hardened. Go up and I pull a cold foil Brave Forge Bracers.
Crazy.
It was a good weekend.
I can imagine. Yeah. That sounds like basically Christmas come early. In a way. Yes. Yeah. Very nice. All right. So yeah, with that being said, see you guys in the next one. Bye.